Welcome to another episode of Living the Dream. I'm your host and moderator, Gregory Tucker. And if this is your first time coming to the channel, we do hope that you will subscribe and remember to hit the notification bell so that way you'll be able to see our next video that comes out. Again, we ask that you like, share, and subscribe. And today, our show, we're going to be going back into our archives, and it's about lights, camera, fashion. Today, we're shooting our episode live and remote right here at the magnificent Riverscape. This is where a lot of performers, local and national performers, come and perform over the summer. I do wish to take this time to apologize for having a lag time in between episodes. One of the reasons is it requires a lot of work, and when you're a minimum or low crew, or let's face it, a one-band show, then it does take its time. I do apologize. We do hope to, or I hope to, present more material in the future in a more expeditious manner. Our battery's about to go, but I would like to introduce as far as who's going to be featured on this episode. One is going to be Lamour, Ameer. He's an international designer.
My name is Lamour, Ameer. I'm originally from Dayton, Ohio. I do call New York my home because that's where I kind of was seasoned, where I was groomed and polished in New York. So I still consider myself a Brooklynite. So that's Daytonian.
Okay. Tell us what you do.
I am an international fashion designer. Normally, I'm kind of shy and humble about my titles, but that's what it is. I'm an international fashion designer, entrepreneur, very independent, totally self-employed, free from the stigmas of socialism in America. I'm free. I'm a free black man. I'm a free black man.
Let me ask you, what got you into this?
The thing that got me really into fashion was, and I'm trying to make this story short. As a senior in high school, graduated from Colonel White High School, I had an instructor by the name of Bob Davis, my art instructor. And every year there were three of us, mainly, who were art majors. And Mr. Davis came to us our senior year and said, okay, I know you're art. We was actually literally drawing still life at the beginning of high school year. He said, how would you like to do fashion illustration? And I was like, I mean, I was on my way of becoming, school's best dressed, and I thought I had some thing for flair for fashion anyway. So I'm like, okay, fine. So that was when I was actually introduced to GQ, EM magazine, Lamour, Vogue, magazines I never knew existed. I was like, wow, this is wonderful. So we started doing illustrations from the magazines. I actually won an honorable mention for fashion illustration from something they had in New York. And then all of a sudden I had a scholarship from UC. I was like, whoa. And towards the end of the year, I remember designing a pair of pants for Mr. Davis. Said, well, there's no way you can structure a pair of pants to look that way. They can't stand out that way. And I'm thinking, I'm sure there's a way this can happen. I'm still learning. Man. So, and then my grandmother, as a dancer, I was a former dancer for Dayton Dance Company. So, a former dancer and a track runner, I had very large thighs and small waists. My grandmother would alter my clothes for me. One summer, she told me no. She didn't want to alter my clothes. I'm thinking, I'll take home, man. I'm a fashion illustrator. I can do this. Went to the pawn shop downtown, bought a sewing machine for $35. Put this heavy machine on the bus, brought it home. And I'm like, it's just a straight stitch, and I just started sewing. Trial and error things, but I was all in my own clothes. And I thought about those pair of pants that Mr. Davis told me I could not build. I said, I'm gonna find a way to do this. So I went to McCroy's, I'm telling my age now. Went to McCroy's, bought some fabric for 50 cents a yard, and made these pants. And I finally wore them out to what we call the kitty disco years ago. Wore them out to the club, and I would do a pirouette, and these pants would balloon out. And they now call them MC Hammer pants. But I made them way back then. And when I made these pants and did a pirouette, they would balloon out. And I remember a girl coming to me saying she wanted a pair, and how much would I charge? I'm like, $5. I mean, my first pair of pants I sold for $5. Someone else wanted a pair, some guy wanted a pair, named Chico. Chico wanted a pair. I made him, sold them to him for 10, then 15, and the price went, I'm like, there's money in this. And ever since then, it's like, that's what I did. It was my hustle. You know, when everyone else was doing other things, I'm like, well, I'm just gonna make a pillow, make a pair of pants. And that's where it started. Actually, that's how it started.
So it was kind of by accident, but at the same time, you had a passion for it.
Yeah, it was just, and I actually had scholarships to, and as a matter of fact, I just found another one for Washington, someplace in Missouri, I think it was, but turned out maybe 12 scholarships. That's because I wanted to be a dancer. You know, I told my best friend, I'm like, I'm not going to take my scholarship at Clark University. I'm going to be a dancer. Oh, he cried. Oh, you messed up our plans. And I'm like, you know, I'm going to be a dancer. You know, so being a dancer and incorporating that and feeding, sustaining myself with some of the fashion, it kind of gelled into one. And it just, I'm like, well, you know, I was born an artist. I am an artist. That's my whole thing. I was a breech birth child, came out dancing. You know, and I'm an artist. I've always used to draw on the walls and you know, take my mother's old clothes, sew up socks. The first thing I actually sewed was a hand puppet. I used to mess around socks. Buttons, anything I could find to make a hand puppet. I had many spankings over hand puppets, but you know, that was my first sewing thing. So, so I've always been an artist. I'm an artist. So that love and drive for fashion comes from my love of being an artist.
Okay.
Yeah. Because of puppet spankings.
Now, let me ask you, who was like a influencing force? I know you had mentioned your teacher in home ec,
Right.
but who was a mentor after you got past?
Honestly, I think about this frequently. I honestly had no mentors. I said that's why the passion for what I do burns. It's like this furnace that's embedded in me, because there's a driving force that has propelled me and elevated me to where I am now. I had no mentors. I had no one to look up to. Bob Davis was my art instructor, and he kind of put it out there a little bit. Don't get me wrong, there were a few people that done little things, like Sean Sanders, who was with the group here. He was an art instructor of mine. Being Davis was an art instructor of mine. They took interest because they said I was this child who had this special gift, or this ability to do things that other kids my age weren't doing. You know, I was able to obtain a scholarship at the Living Arts Center, a scholarship at the Dayton Art Institute. So that was because I had this little kid, this little African American boy who was doing things that other kids his age wasn't doing. But as far as someone saying, this is how you do this, and then we're going to do that, I've never had one. And that's one of the reasons when I go into Fairview and now Thurgood Marshall and been to Oakwood, you know, now when I go in as a speaker or as a mentor, the kids who have this drive and this passion, I take interest in them. I give them all that I can give them, because I feel that everything that I've ascertained thus far does not belong to me. You know, God has given it to me to share. So if I have to mentor someone, there have been times people come over, I'm like, this is how you make a pattern. This is how you sew. This is how you do it this way. This is done that way. It's because I have to give it back, because I didn't have it. You know, I didn't have it. I've always wanted it. And I've told a lot of children that, and some grown-ups I've been mentor, if God had given me, a person such as myself when I was younger, it's like, there's no telling what I'd be doing right now. You know, but everything I've done has always been trial and error and the grace of God. I actually had no mentors. Family, no one. I've never had it. Let me back up. When I was a dance with DC, I've always said I had two mentors, Alvin McDuffie and Billy Wilson. as a dancer. Billy Wilson was the one that got me into dancing, which actually propelled me to heights I never thought I'd reach. But they always told me, and my granddaddy was such as a mentor. Granddaddy was the one who told me what it is to be a black man at the age of 7, and that has always been instilled in my brain. This is what it is to be a black man, who you have tall, take pride, But other than that, it was just those three. But they weren't the type of mentors that taught me how to be a designer or how to seek independence, on an artistic type of level, So, but that's where, so that I really didn't have a mentor to guide and teach me and show me this type of leather you use, and this is what silk is, and this is where the market is, this is what you should call. I've never had it. I've never had that before. Mm-hmm. I'm mentorless.
Let me ask you this right here, and that is that when you first started out, was there any fear or is apprehension that?
Yeah, there was a fear because of pretty much peer pressure, but because of Alvin McDuffie, my grandfather Alvin McDuffie and Billy Wilson is telling me to be a strong black man. That I didn't care about apprehensions. I've been used to being talked about, and I've always said God has groomed me in ways that you probably won't know until I finish writing my book. So I've been talked about since I was 7 years old, and having my mom tell us that people talk about God and they talk about Buddha, they're gonna talk about you. So I'm like, okay, I'm used to being talked about. So I'm used to being talked about because I feel that the more time you take out of your life to talk about me, the less time you have to improve yourself. Talk about me, So being a dancer with a dance company as an African American man who was pretty much a track star and known throughout his town to be a male dancer. But I'm like, well, look at these fine women I'm around. I get to pick them up and smell them every day, So, and they were like, oh, she's fine. I'm like, yeah, she is, So it's kind of like, okay, and I didn't care whether or not they accepted it. Then as being an artist, it's like an artist, you should work at GM with everyone else. I'm like, I don't want to work at GM. That's not my thing. I do other things with my hand. So so I've always got out of the stigmas of being talked about because I didn't care. Because I felt that if you're not talking about me, I'm not doing my job right. So let me give you something else to talk about. So I call it narcissism if you want to. Like narcissism helped me a lot. That was my Band-Aid. I'm like, okay, they're talking about me. I know I'm dressed differently and I smell differently and I'm 6 feet 4 inches, 218 pounds, and they're trying to figure out who is this man, but this is who I am, and I'm a prince. I mean, that's narcissism, I guess. Since the age of 6, I've always known that I was a prince, and because of that, that's always permitted me to stand a certain way. Like I'm a prince. And a prince is supposed to be gawked at and talked about and laughed at and pointed at. We're supposed to, that comes with the title. So because of me knowing I'm a prince, I accepted it. So I didn't care about stigmatisms. I didn't care about people backbiting. I actually never, and to this day, don't care. I've never cared to talk about me. If they see this, they're gonna talk positively and negatively. But the thing is, you're watching me. So, chalk one up for narcissism.
Tell us about your travels.
Wow. A lot of times when I try to leave the country, there's always something that holds me back. For example, last year I thought I was going to fly to Nigeria to do Nigeria's Fashion Week. And they called me at the last moment. I was just dealing with Jenna Morris, who is like my international manager, is what I call it. So she's like, I just got a call, they're flying to Nigeria, and I'm running around like, oh my God, what do I need to do? What to do? It's like, they said, that was a Friday. They called her Friday morning. I'm ready to go to the masjid, and I'm trying to think, okay, I need to go pray first, and then I'll come back and deal with this. But by 3 or 4 o'clock, there's nothing you can do on trying to get past, I had my passport, but trying to get visas, there was nothing you can do. I was supposed to fly out that following Tuesday. So I'm going through all this, trying to do stuff over the weekend, which is nothing you can do. We're trying to expedite the visa papers. We're going through all this craziness. It's okay, well, they moved your flight from Tuesday to Wednesday. And they changed it from Wednesday to Thursday, from Thursday to Friday. We tried to expedite the visa, didn't come through. When it finally was going to come, I'm packed. All my things are here, packed, I'm ready to go. My visa did not arrive to Dayton, Ohio until Saturday. And they said, they traced it, they said it's in Memphis, Tennessee on the FedEx plane. The plane is broke down on the top, there's nothing new. I cried for 3 days, and I stayed depressed and stayed in bed under my canopy, where I stayed under the covers for 3 days. I'm like, get over it. It wasn't meant to be. You know, trying to go to Europe was always something, but in spite of that, by the grace of God, I've lived in New York, I've lived in LA, Chicago, places in between. So I've traveled the United States extensively. My biggest joy and passion, besides doing the islands and doing shows and weddings and was finally going home to Africa last year. I get kind of emotional about it, but I always say that whenever God permits me to go to Africa, wherever I put my feet on soil, I'm gonna kiss this ground. I shouldn't have done it because I came with a mouthful of sand and everything else, but and actually I did, because when I first landed, I was in Casablanca, Morocco. But I'm in the port and I'm like, wait till I get on fresh into the air. But I finally made it to Monrovia, and I have never been accepted and treated so well in my life. And I've been called spoiled. It's like, you're really spoiled, you're just a big old baby. I'm like, whatever, I'm a prince. I'm supposed to be spoiled. But to go home and have people accept you because you're you. No other reason, just because you're you. Not because of my status of being an American, that had something to do with it. Or status of being a New Yorker, that had a little bit to do with it. Or my status of being an international designer, that had a little bit to do with it as well. But because of me. To have people cry because you're leaving. Or cry, giving you the things they gave me, just to remember them by. And to obtain a call from Monrovia every single day, or a text message, or Instagram or something. Since December, I came back to America December 25th, and every day without fail I received some type of call or something from someone from Monrovia, because they love me. I was actually going to come back here, pack up everything I have, get rid of it, and move to Monrovia. I really was. But I didn't. I didn't. So, but I'm invited to come back this year as well. This whole epidemic thing subsides there. I'm going back. But that's I can't even really think about any place I've gone, because that is the forefront of my life right now. It's going home. Canada was beautiful. I can't think. I love the islands. When I go there to work, knowing people like, well, were you in St. Croix? You were in Nassau? Yeah, but it was work. Even Monrovia was work, because they worked me like a Hebrew slave. But the fact of the matter is, I was working at home in Africa, and I didn't care. But that's the only travel I can think about right now is home, Africa. So, and there's no telling what's going to happen when I get to Ghana and Nigeria and Senegal. I may never come back.
And you had mentioned that when you visit these places, that you don't do the sightseeing, or is it pretty much for you?
I've never been a tourist kind of person. That's never been in my nature. Even when I went to New York to visit for the first time, I wasn't a tourist. I didn't care about the Statue of Liberty. I didn't care about the Empire State Building. As a matter of fact, the first time I even thought about the Empire State Building, I happened to walk in there to say my prayers off in the corner. And I came out and was like, oh, it's an Empire State Building. So I've never been a tourist type person. When I was in St. Croix doing the Miss St. Croix pageant, and my client won, I was one, and I became like a star overnight. And every place I went to the island, like, oh, you're that's me, And I'm thinking, I should move to St. Croix. My stock is kind of high in St. Croix. But Marcelino had actually taken me, one of my people brought me to one of my hosts, took me around the whole island of St. Croix. I fell in love with St. Croix. It's such a beautiful, 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 beautiful place. In spite of the Europeans who are going and buying up all the small little islands and buying up things and knocking things down, it's kind of sad, but c'est la vie. But it's a beautiful, beautiful place. And that was the only time I've ever been given that type of tour. Going to lagoons and private places to pick, clams and It was absolutely beautiful. And I'm like, this is what it's like to take a tour of the place? I'm like, who knew? When I went to Africa, I was with a friend of mine who was with the UN, they showed me around, but I didn't care about sightseeing. That was a mistake on my behalf. Because my thing was like, I was there with the people, I'm living it, I didn't care about sightseeing. So I've never been one to sightsee. Even in Nassau, there are beautiful places to see in Nassau. But my thing is, right now I'm just living. I'm living. I didn't care about sightseeing. I don't like being around tourists. Even in New York, when I lived in New York, I would come home for the holidays because I didn't want to be around tourists, especially around New Year's. I'm like, I'm going home. I don't care about no bar. I've never seen the apple drop in New York, never, because I always came home. I didn't care about seeing that because it wasn't real. I like realism. I like life, and the only way to experience life is to be away from tourists. I stay away from it. It just so happens even in Nassau. It was in Nassau. In Nassau, I kind of stayed. Although I was in the area where the ships are coming in, I didn't deal with them. There's a certain area around the straw market where tours are like saturated. I went there to get some Cuban cigars, but other than that, I stayed away from the straw market. I had friends who were there. They took me other places, but it wasn't to sightsee. It was just to live. And I loved it. Got on the bus by myself, rode up to Michael Street, and I just did my own thing. Not as a tourist, just as a person living there. Although people are like, you're different. Where are you from? You dressed. Even in Africa, it's like you're African. I'm like, I'm African American. No, you're from somewhere. You're from the North Africa. I'm like, I'm not. So I've never been one to sightsee. Even if people have friends that come here to a Dayton, I'm like, I'm not sure where to take you because I'm not into sightseeing. Just live, sit down, relax, and take you something to eat. Then we'll go to the park. But I don't sightsee. Maybe I should try it one of these days. I'll start home. I need to know what are the sites here in home.
You can share it with me next time you have a guest.
What are the sites? I don't know where they are. I know the bike trail, the gym, and the fabric store. That's all I know.
Now, something that really caught my attention that you mentioned several times, and that is life. Is that how does that play into your designs or your creativity?
It plays a lot into my creativity. Where I am spiritually and mentally, life is fleeting and it's very short. I was always told as a child, life is short, life is short, life is short. And it is. It is short. I have a friend now who's going through brain surgery. Things are looking good. Went to a funeral yesterday and one last Friday. So it's short. And my thing is, live life as if there's no tomorrow. I've never been one who was really a wild child. There's some wildness, that was there. But it was always very tamed because I felt that in spite of whatever I'm doing for the moment, I have to think that there is maybe a tomorrow. So I have to make sure that I'm respected because I am a prince. So I have to be respected. And whatever I did, I had to live life to its fullest, but be respectful and be respected in turn. I never think about, and I've been asked this question, what is your legacy when you die? I don't think about that. I just want to make sure that I have no enemies, that I'm not mad at anyone, I don't want anyone mad at me. But of course, there's one mad about something trivial, but nothing major. I'm not a liar nor a thief, and that makes me feel good. Last night I was with a friend of mine who's a vocalist, and she and I were hanging out together. And she was like, well, I need to do this. I'm like, let's go. We went down to Work on District. I wanted to go to Roots to get one of my favorite places to eat. They were closed. I'm like, and all of a sudden that came out of my mouth, I can't stand this town. If I was in New York or Chicago or LA, I'm thinking, chill out. That's not living. You put an obstacle in your life. Oh, okay, well, you know what? Let's go to Max and Irma's for a garbage burger. And we did that, it was wonderful. Then we left there and we went shopping, Walmart. And we went shopping and we had a ball. It's like, okay, this is going to be our thing. At least once a month, we're going to go out shopping at night. And to me, that's living. I see the small things in life. For example, for me to go to a park and just sit by the river or watch a butterfly, to me, that's life. For me to see a new plant growing from my plants, that's life. I like to see things grow and know that And I actually am one who stops and literally smells the roses. Or goes to the honeysuckle plant and then pull the stem out and you then taste the honey on it. That's life. To see a child fall and cry and wipe them off and see that, to me, that's life. So I've never put obstacles or anything in my path that's going to be an obstruction. I don't like negativity of any type, shape, form, or fashion. If it's negative, iron it out, get it out the way, don't bring it to me. I don't like to hear a bunch of profanity and that's like the stuff you're seeing on Facebook now. It's bothering me. Things that are happening in this country, it bothers me. But I've learned to see the beauty in everything. I've had people say to me, well, that's really morbid. Like my best friend passed away in 2000, which was the reason I moved back from New York. I went through a lot psychologically, spiritually, emotionally, because I was the best friend I've ever had in my life. But having to go through the process that I had to go through to get this brother in the grave, I actually seen the beauty in it. I tell people, I see the beauty in death. To see my grandmother go through what she went through before she expired, I seen the beauty in death. So because of that, I'm like, this is a gift given to me by God. To be able to see and read and interpret this is a gift. So I do live life to the fullest. I'm not an extremist. I don't go overboard with it. I like the things to be mild and smooth, and I think that's how life should be. I don't get caught up into a bunch of politics. I don't get caught up in people's religious points of views because I don't care. You have yours, I have mine. I don't care about. I hope I'm answering your question right, but to me, life is very precious. It's very, 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 very precious. And it should be treated as such because I feel like if you don't, you've been disrespectful to God because He gave you this gift. And it should be smooth. It's supposed to be irie, copacetic, and all those other little cliches you want to use. That's how life should be. So I don't deal with negative stigmatisms. I pray and fast too much to deal with that. I don't want to be bothered with it. People come to me, I'm like, c'est la vie, such is life. Get over it. I tell myself that every day. This is much I go through on the course of a day. I'm like, get over it. I get up, put my feet on the ground, say a quick little prayer, put some type of nourishment in my body, and I'm off. And if I don't feel like doing it, I don't do it. There are people who tell me it's like, you're actually free. Like, well, what do you mean? You work for yourself. I'm like, yeah, but it's a sacrifice. There are sacrifices. When I'm trying to find some new leather or some new piece of silk or something to make something with, it's like, Sprint might have to wait for a while. Might have to wait, Wi-Fi might have to wait for a while. So I'll make their sacrifices. And I'm like, well, if I go flip a couple of burgers, maybe I can. But I don't want to do that. I get up when I want to get up, which is normally 11 o'clock to watch the Price Right. I'll fix me a bacon and egg sandwich, turkey bacon and egg sandwich, and a cup of coffee, and I'm gone. If I don't feel like leaving my flat, I don't leave my flat. There are times I'm here 2 or 3 days at a time and will not leave. And if I leave, I'm going to the street to check on my family, my mom, and the kids. And other than that, I'm right here. I don't need to do anything. I'm happy. I'm content. Life is about being content, being happy, passionate about what you're doing, and being content. That's it. I always take the long road. I was born in June. I can't help it. So I take the long road. I have to cover all the bases.
That's great, bro. Tell me about inspiration, though, as far as with some of your designs or your fashion.
Oh, you know what? I remember one time being asked this question and we laughed about it. I'm inspired by food. I'm a foodie. And it's so funny because a friend of mine who's a fashion designer in Tampa, Florida, he said, Tiger, he was like, well, as an international designer, you shouldn't post so much food on Facebook. It should be more about your passion for fashion. And I'm like, but my life is not all about fashion. My life is about living. And food, you need food to sustain yourself, to live. I love food. I love good food. I love fine cuisine. And by the grace of God, I have friends from all over the world. My Senegalese friends, oh my God, they've opened my palate to a life that I never knew existed until 20 years ago. You know, so I'm like, ooh, Yasa, Chebajin, Chebayapa. Wow. You know, I have a friend here who is the chef. And he's like, you know, he knows who he is. He takes some of our recipes. He tries them. I'm like, to be able to, as an artist, that's where the art comes in, to be able to post something on Facebook or Instagram and people look at it and salivate, you know, like, it's about, you have to eat with the eyes first. So that's where the art thing comes in. It has to be decorated, kind of right, you know. So there are times I will do my lemon pepper chicken, for example. My lemon pepper chicken is major. And because of me cooking this lemon pepper chicken, I was actually inspired to do this lemon yellow dress, this gown, because of lemon pepper chicken. I was working on a piece that's red because I love pomegranates. And when you see the seeds of a pomegranate, there's a way you have to cut a pomegranate, you beat the seeds out. I was like, that is really beautiful. I'm like, wow. And I'll start beating this gown, and it looks like pomegranate seed, you know. And I'm like, pomegranate. So I'm actually inspired. Now the world knows I'm inspired by food. Even when I was in Liberia, their national dish is palm butter. And oh my God, palm butter is a wonderful, 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 wonderful dish. And to see this, to be by the ocean, smell the ocean, and I'm actually inspired to do another collection which basically involves seashells and has this palm butter look to it. This kind of a collaboration of, like, it's almost like a gumbo kind of thing, you know. But so I'm inspired by food. A lot of times I may be inspired because of living in nature. There's a little spot I go to by myself on Sundays, and sometimes I'll take my daughter and my nieces, and we'll just sit there and read in the wet forest. You know, it's cover a canopy of trees. We just sit there and read, and that I get a lot of inspirations from nature. You know, so I'm inspired by food and nature. You know, which brings us back to just life. You know, that's my inspiration comes from. Very, 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 very rarely will I go through a magazine to get if I need inspiration. Very rarely will I look at street fashion because I'm not inspired by that much. So it's pretty much nature and food is my inspiration. You know, some things come through visions. For example, there was a piece I did that sold at Ameer Fashion Fair years ago. There was 35 yards of zippers. I had leather and suede patches on with the swing back duster cape, hooded cape. That came to me through a vision. I was where I used to live. I had a studio in my flat, and I was going to go to sleep. And normally I can't go to bed until 3 o'clock in the morning anyway. It was about 3 o'clock in the morning. I finally get in bed, and all of a sudden I had this epiphany. I'm like, oh my God, zippers. So I got up and ran to my studio. I'm like trying to pull zippers from everywhere, trying to put them on my mannequin and see. I'm like, that's it. That following day I got up, you know, found these zippers, and boom, did this piece that was a major showstopper through Ameer Fashion Fair. I mean, it was a major, major, major showstopper. You know, so it will come to me through inspiration from visions, rarely. But other than that, it's food and nature.
Secrets out.
Secrets out. I'll drink coffee then.
Okay. What has been some of your challenges, and how did you overcome those?
Wallahi, honestly, I just had that conversation with a friend of mine, St. Croix, that I told you about earlier today. That was our conversation. Some of my challenges have been, and I'm just keeping it real, I'm a realist. My biggest challenge has been, first of all, trying to find backing and funding for what I do. And even at the age I am now, to have someone in Dayton, Ohio say, this is what I'll do for you if you do this for me. I had never been, nowhere will I ever be the type of person that will do something outside my morals and my beliefs to get something that I want. And I'm just keeping it clean version. Living in New York, I dealt with that a lot. Living in Chicago, living in LA, definitely LA. And even here in Dayton. I mean, there's so many places I could name. It's like where people have said, well, if you just go on a date with me. I'm like, I don't want to go on a date. I don't do dates. Yeah, I'll give you this. No, I'm not the type of person. I don't do that. I've never done that. I've never sold my soul for anything that I wanted. Because I've always felt that if God wants me to have it, He's going to give it to me. I've never stepped outside my realm or my boundaries and my morals for anything I've ever wanted in life. Never. So that has been the biggest obstacle and challenge that I've had, because people have always said, well, I can do your website for you. Oh yeah, I can be your manager. I can promote you. Can I come over? I'm like, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. No. So that has been the biggest obstacle I've had, and it's always been the stigma of my whole career. As a dancer, as a model, as a designer, as a painter, as a sculptor. That has always been my obstacle. And my whole thing has always been, well, you know what? I don't want it that bad. There are too many other things I can do. I'll go be a teacher if I have to. As a matter of fact, I can collect some soda cans or some aluminum and sell that. I'm not going to sell my soul. I don't want it that bad. So that has always been the biggest challenge I've had, and it just happened actually almost like 2 weeks ago here in Dayton. I'm like, oh, come on. I mean, I'm 600 years old now. What can you possibly want in me? I'm like, you're tripping. So that has been the biggest obstacle of my whole entire life. Somebody wanting something from my person that they cannot have to get something they think I want. You can't enjoy life that way. I know of too many people, and they're probably in my book, who have sold themselves to the devil to get, a boost in their career. And you look at them now, it's like used, worn out, horrible, and have absolutely nothing to show for it. Nothing. You see them now, it's like, oh, how you doing? And I'm smiling, I'm happy. How are you? It's like, you're so happy because I'm free. I didn't have to sell my soul to the devil. I'm free. And I'm living life. But then again, that's my biggest thing, is dealing with gatekeepers and people who think they have something to offer you, for your person, for your soul. Other than that, everything else is pretty cool. So yeah. But that's.
There's one thing that you had mentioned also, that you, first mentoring, that you work you do mentoring?
Yes. I've always felt that as a real black man, and I'm just saying it because that's one of the things I am. I have a lot of different titles, but and one thing people don't know about is also is like I'm a chief of the Anishinaabe long-haired Cherokee clan, of the long-haired nation, clan of the Cherokees. And even with that, with these titles that I have, being a real strong black man, one of the things I have to do is give back. It's obligatory that us as men, especially African American men, give back because they're not used to it. Going into Fairview Elementary as a parent, an active parent, was shocking. It was shocking to the staff. It was definitely shocking to the students. There's a black man in the school. And this black man comes in as an alpha male. I'm very old school. I'm strict, authoritative. I mean what I say, and I say what I mean. I refuse to be disrespected by anyone, especially a child. And as an alpha male, there's certain things you won't put up with. By the end of the school year, everyone knew who Mr. Ameer was. Most of them called me uncle, and still do. It was my job as a mentor to say, why are you carrying on like this in school? Why are you using profanity? You don't touch a female that way. You don't let a male touch you this way. And tell them why. Because my thing is the best way to teach is through experience. If a child is like, don't touch me, and they're cussing and carrying on, I'm like, let's talk. This is why you don't carry on this way. This is why you don't do this. You tell them why they don't do it. And you let them live by example. Then as an artist, we found out that they wanted to do a sewing class. So every Wednesday at 4 o'clock, I think it was, 3:30, 4 o'clock, I went to my pocket, took my materials with me, and went to the school, and I taught kids. From the 6th grade, no, they were younger than that. Little kids, and I loved them. At first I was like, oh, these kids are getting on my nerves. But I loved it. I had to teach these kids how to sew. And we sewed by hand, made wonderful projects. You know, the teacher, principal, there, Mrs. Colley, they loved it. You know, but I had to give back. And although I remember Mr. Truitt as a dancer, although he taught us dance, he taught us life. So I would talk to the kids. Their biggest thing was like, how old are you today, Mr. Ameer? I'm 36. I'm 110. That was their biggest thing. How old are you today? You know, it changes every day anyway, because of how I'm feeling when I wake up. But to teach them not only how to sew, and because there was a little kid in my class, was I think like 8 or 9, who was teaching their mother what I taught them. You know, and then they had their parents say, yeah, my child taught me. Like, really? I'm like, I touched one. You know, and that's my whole thing. If I can touch one child, just one kid, you know, and then they had me talk to the 7th and the 8th graders last year. They put all these little boys in a room, and I took note how the 8th graders in the back and put the 7th graders in the front and said, it's completely the other way around. You all need to learn how to be men. You need to learn how to be men. You need to come into the forefront. You need to say what you mean and mean what you say. Be heard. You know, there was a lot we sat there almost like 2 hours just talking. One little boy was like, I don't want to do this. I want to be a social studies. I'm like, brother, this is social studies. This little brother now, I seen him not long ago, he's now in high school at Thurgood Marshall. He said, Mr. Ameer, I still think about everything you told me. And I have one little boy who's walking around, big old boy, loud. When I had that talk with him, he came back the next day and said, Mr. Ameer, I'm sorry. I know what you mean. And my grandmother said you were right. And to touch these kids, I'm like, that's my legacy. To have the kids say, 50 years from now, I remember this guy, Mr. Ameer, told me, and it made me a better man. Or it made me a better young lady. And I'm respecting myself and I'm respecting others. I always tell them you cannot respect anyone until you respect yourself. There's no possible way you can respect anyone until you respect yourself. And as an African American, there's no way you can ever know who or what you are until you know where you came from. And those are my whole 2 things right there. And with that, everything else kind of gels into place. You know, but I love mentoring. I love it. I tell parents, if you have a problem with your child, a lot of them in high school now, like, this is my car. If anything happens, let me know. If you need me, I'm there. You know, I sent a kid in the store with their mom at Kroger just 3-4 days ago. You know, what you did for the kids is really nice, and you know, she's going to another school, and now I'm like, well, here's my card. I know just what you want. I'm like, here's my card. If you need me, call me. You know, so I love mentoring. I would do that for free. Actually, I would do that before I would make an outfit. I would rather mentor. So maybe that's what I think. Oprah would say, that's what you need to be doing. You're right.
Okay, getting back to your fashions, how do someone commission you as far as to?
You know, I first of all, by the grace of God, I've never had to advertise. I've never advertised in my life. I don't feel it's obligatory to advertise. Or so you can do all the advertisements you want to do, but if God doesn't want you to have it, you're not going to get it. So why waste your money? You know, it's that simple. There are people who, normally people will come to me through word of mouth, and I'm very particular about who I work for. I don't feel that my art, because this is wearable art, my art is not for everyone to wear. Just like, you know, Picasso made, not what you paint that in your home. You know, so I don't feel it's obligatory for everyone to wear my art. So I've been called snooty. Okay, I'll take that as well. I've been called worse by better. But normally someone would say, if I don't know someone that you know that's recommended you to contact me, I probably won't work with you. I know it's kind of, I don't know what word for that, but that's just how it is. And that's a part of my freedom as well. I want to like the person I'm working for, and I want you to like me. And other than that, I'm cool. I'd rather sit here and you know, read or sketch or do something else. So I don't have to work because God's going to pay my bills anyway. So I don't worry about it. But normally a person would hear through word of mouth, because a lot of people know who I am. They just don't know where I am. I had a client I worked for. I did some work for her stepdaughter that happened to have met me through someone who met me through the fabric store. So it's like this little chain. It's like these little fine links that are linking together. You know, I call it the quantum connection. So I'm kind of working through quantum connections. And finally worked with this woman, she said, I have been looking for you for years. And I live right around the corner. A lot of people don't know where I live. They said, where do you live? I'll meet you. But she said, I have been looking for you. She said, I remember you came back to Dayton in 2000. And I've been looking for you since 2000. And you were right around the corner. Inside Couture, when they came here for Dayton Fashion Week, they said I was Dayton's best kept secret. And I'm like, okay, I'll take that. It said I'm the gem of Dayton, I'm a well kept secret. So if you don't know someone who knows me well, the chances are I probably won't do any work for you. I'm not trying to be a nasty person. I'm perceived as being a little narcissistic and a few other things and difficult to work with. I'm not difficult. I'm actually a really nice person and silly. A lot of people know I'm goofy. But being my own manager, my own agent, my own secretary, I'm very protective of me. I have always been protective of me because I have to keep the gatekeepers away and the wolves. I've always had to shield myself against a lot of negativity. So I'm very, very protective of me. And even for someone to step into my environment, I'm very particular about my space. I don't want any negative vibes in my space because I had some stories. I remember one time a lady came in, I was working for a client in Springfield, and I was making a gown for her. She brought a friend with her, and this woman was when we got out the car, I looked at this woman like, because I had this gift I could kind of read doors, but I was like, this woman, I remember saying to myself, something wicked this way comes. I'm like, okay, let me do this quick fitting, this quick alteration, and I'm going to send this woman out of here. This woman came in, she's looking at my African art, and she's like, this woman's talking to me. I was like, excuse me, she was talking about, I had to change the rearrange, but she was talking about one of the masks. I'm like, it's talking to you. I'm like, oh, God, get this woman out of here. So I'm trying to rush her out. The next day, this plant used to be almost 8 times as big as it is now. This woman, from where she sat right here, the side of the plant had drooped down. I had a television that would not work. The television in my bedroom would not work. I turned on the light went out. I'm thinking, oh my God, I need to do some purification. So I am very, very, very particular about who's in my space. Even when I'm in public, that's New York that kicks in. I'm very funny about who's in my space. So therefore, I don't invite everyone in my space. And if that means I can't make a couple of dollars, then I prefer to have my space and my freedom and not have a couple of dollars. So I'm very, 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 very particular on who wears my art. Very particular. And it doesn't always look good on everyone. Sometimes I will give you what you want. I'm like, well, this is what you want. I'm going to give you what you want. And we'll send you on your way. And that's why, and my whole thing is called custom cut couture. It's custom cut couture. So everything's custom cut. Here people come to me, well, what do you have on the rack? What do you have? I'm like, it's all custom cut. I remember in New York, years ago, I was with Vanessa Tyler, who's with the channel station here in Dayton. Here in Dayton, and we were in New York at New York Fashion Week, and I'm sitting in the VIP tent, and here's Ivana Trump, and I'm like, Ivana, and who's really, really, she's a beautiful person. I love Ivana Trump. So Vanessa introduces, because this is the thing, you just don't introduce yourself, you need to be introduced. So we introduced, and she's going, I just happen to have my portfolio with me, so she's going through my portfolio, and she's like, where's your showroom? Like, I don't have a showroom, all my things are custom cut. And she's the type of person I've seen her do it, she'll look at something and buy everything. I'm thinking, oh my God, I've had a showroom, oh my God. But such is life. All my things are custom cut. So when if a person comes to me, it's like, I want this gown, or I want this suit, if a guy needs a pair of pants or a shirt, it's all custom cut. I take your measurements. I have clients who say, well, what size do I wear? It's your size. I don't know what size you wear, it's your size. And we all, you can get a small, medium, large, extra large, but something that's custom cut for your frame and your body is your size. I can't tell you what size it is. I had a client of mine call me from Chicago. He said, well, so-and-so likes my suit, what size is it? I'm like, I don't know, it's your size. I can't tell you what size it is, it's just your size, it's for your frame. And I said, although your frame may be your height and almost your stature, trust me, your measurements are totally different. That's why it's custom cut. So, and I don't like to custom cut for everyone. Everyone just don't need to be custom cut. Just go on to wherever they shop and get your stuff. I don't want to do it, So it's through word of mouth and me being very selective. Very, very, very selective.
So, getting ready to wrap this up, one of the things that you would suggest to them, or
I did an interview for Untitled Chapter, and outside of Miami, Florida, and one of the things that got the producer of Untitled Chapter was this. My answer to that question. My thing is, learn your craft. If you want to be a fashion designer, learn your craft. A lot of us think that, well, I want to be this overnight sensation because Sean Puffy Combs did it. First of all, those people who are in that life, they're not fashion designers. They have a stylist who styles them because they're in the forefront. They're perceived as being the designer. But for someone to sit up and know how to make a pattern, know how to change and alter a pattern, for someone who can take an outfit and make it totally different, you have to learn your craft. You have to know fabrics. You have to know your colors. You have to know the weight of fabrics. You have to know what types of threads to use on certain types of fabrics. You have to learn terminology. Learn a little bit of French. There's a lot that you have to learn in order to call yourself a designer or any type of artist. You have to know your craft. And my main thing is sacrifice. If there's something you really, really want to do, as I said, there are times I may want to make a new jacket or make a new gown, and I'm like, well, you know what? Rent will be late this month because this is what I want to do. This is my drive. This is my passion. It's going to make me happy. So I'm going to have to make a sacrifice, and Sprint might have to wait. Wi-Fi might have to wait. Something's going to be put on hold. I may not have to buy groceries that week. But learn your craft and know that you must, as an artist, you must sacrifice. We hear about artists of cutting off their ears and everything else. If that's your sacrifice, that's your sacrifice. But you will somewhere along the line make some type of sacrifice without selling your soul. You make that sacrifice honestly, earnestly, wholeheartly, and passionately, and learn your craft. There's no way you can call yourself an artist and not know your craft. There's no possible way in the world you can call yourself a bona fide artist and not know your craft. It's a victory. It's a victory.
hope that you found that program informative and it empowered you to take action. Now, remember, when you're writing the story of your life, be sure that you're holding the pen. Until the next time, live your dream, and we want to hear your story.